The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. We're going to talk about fantasy pitchers. You got to get on your roster, but they're kind of sleepers. We're also going to talk Major League Baseball news, the playoff races, and the ever so popular ads and drops. That's what's cooking on today's Fantasy Baseball Show.
Play ball!
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show presented by Belly Up Fantasy Sports and Righteous Felon Jerky. I'm your host, Vince Stover, and I'm joined by the senior fantasy baseball writer from BellyUpFantasySports.com, the one and only Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kev, how you doing, man?
We're doing good, and we're trying to survive the heat dome. But beyond that, we're doing great. It was exciting, some baseball, because we had the Dodgers in town here. And so that's why Dodgers representing right here. And so it's been a good weekend. And, of course, we're talking baseball, and I'm always happy to do that.
It's been a fun baseball weekend. Tampa and Baltimore going at it. Milwaukee and Atlanta, close games all the way around. It was a fun weekend, no doubt, and it'll continue to be fun. I put it out there on Twitter this past week. I mean, we are actually, I guess it was on the power rankings that we posted yesterday or today. But I mean, there's a feeling in the air right now in baseball. It's competitive. There's a lot at stake at this point in the season, and I mean, there's big series coming this week. Cincinnati and Milwaukee go head to head again this week. So a lot happening, some big games. We got the trade deadline looming, which there's all kinds of rumors about that. And so everything around Major League Baseball right now is kicking, and it's exciting to see that. You know, you don't want a season at this point in the season for there to be little at stake. And right now there's a ton at stake going on.
There sure is. And I know that football camps open this week, but all that needs to take a step aside because baseball is here and it is alive. So,
well, that's it. Baseball has to earn its keep. They don't do near as good a job with the promotion of the sport as some of the other sports do. Today I had the baseball game on, Brewers and Braves, and I wanted to turn on the race on the other screen and watch the race too, but the race is being hidden. It's on the USA Network, and I don't get the USA Network. And I thought, my goodness, if there's anyone doing it worse than baseball, it's NASCAR. They don't have the race available for you to see very, very easily at the very least. And but that being said, the product being put out right now by baseball is phenomenal. They've got the stars out there that they can promote as well, and it's an exciting time. And
right,
football,
and they're young stars too. So
they are,
they are
great
a lot
point.
of young guys and guys that are way younger than you or I have a reason to watch baseball. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's fun. You know, football is going to always lead the way. But that being said, baseball has a chance to keep itself front and center by the races going on. I think it'll do a decent job at it. We do want to say hello to our live viewers watching us on the Sports Stove YouTube page or the Belly Up Fantasy Facebook page, and all those listening later via the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to get things kicked off tonight with the Fantasy Burner segment. Fantasy Burner segment is presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com, your one-stop shop for all things fantasy sports, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, and anything else that's out there. It's available for you at BellyUpFantasySports.com. Today's Fantasy Burners segment, we're talking sleepers at the pitcher position for this final stretch of the fantasy baseball season, looking for guys under 50% owned, and not necessarily waiver wire pickups, but maybe guys you can try to acquire via trade, guys that you can watch for that if they do get cut, those kinds of things as well. To me, Kevin, there are a ton of pitchers that are, below 50% owned that are actually putting up really good fantasy stats right now.
They are.
And could be attainable. Is that the right word? They can be, okay, good. They can be attainable throughout the rest of the season as we get near trade deadlines for fantasy baseball, playoff push for fantasy baseball, those kinds of things there. So, Kevin, I'll let you start if you got one sleeper pitcher to look for here in the fantasy baseball final stretch.
All right. So if we're going to start off sleeper, I got one that's at 9.4% owned. And he pitches for the Los Angeles Angels, they have not disappeared as we feared they might. But the guy I'm talking about is Griffin Canning.
Okay.
Of the Angels. And he, except for when he faced the Dodgers, which, if you saw the game yesterday, they put 16 on the Texas Rangers. So they could put some runs on the board. But aside from that, he has pitched into the 6th inning in 1, 2, 3, 4 of his last 5 starts. And he pitched against the Yankees, 5 2/3, 2 runs, 6 hits, struck out 12 and walked 3. And his next start is Tuesday against the Detroit Tigers. And even though they're still fighting for a playoff spot, that's because they're in the AL Central, but that does not mean they're a good team.
Right.
And so that is a start that you can look to for him to come out of that with some points. And he's had positive fantasy points every game except for against the Dodgers. So Griffin Canning at 9.4% owned is definitely a qualified sleeper in my mind.
I like that a lot. He's on pace to set career numbers for himself this year. This is his 4th year in the league. He did not play in 2022, and I'm not sure why.
He had an injury. I'm not sure what the injury was either.
Okay.
But, Griffin Canning, he's 6-4 on the year.
Yeah.
So, and his ERA is not good, but, when you give up runs to the Dodgers, that tends to happen. But
yeah, he's at 4.52, I think.
4.52, 1.23 whip. That's not too terribly bad.
Yeah.
But like I said, so a lot of that came in the early parts of the season, and he is not a youngster, which I like.
Right.
You don't have to worry too much about his innings or any of that stuff. So Griffin Canning is a guy I like a lot.
I like him too, Kevin. He's pitched 79.2 innings. He's got 83 strikeouts compared to 25 walks. That's a good ratio you like to see as well. And like I said, he's on pace for career numbers. He's already started more games this year than he has since 2019, and he should surpass that this year as well. A lot of good things there from Canning for sure. I like that pick. Good pick. I'm going to go a guy that's owned at 42.6%. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to figure out what in the world that noise was coming from. It's coming from me. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Kyle Bradish, Baltimore Orioles. Orioles, of course, first place in the AL East, first place in the AL altogether. Bradish is owned in 42.6% of leagues. He's got an ERA of 3.05, 97.1 innings pitched, 92 strikeouts. He's got a 6-5 record. I have definitely been all over this Orioles pitching staff saying that, man, I just don't trust them. I think they need to add a piece, and whatever it may be. At the end of the day, Kyle Bradish has produced fantasy-wise for sure. They got a couple guys that have. But Kyle Bradish is performing. His ERA is respectable at 3.05. And, again, that strikeout ratio is pretty solid, 92 Ks and 91.2 innings. So that's a strikeout per inning. I like that a lot from Kyle Bradish, and I think he's a guy, again, unless you got an Orioles fan that's got him on their team, he's probably a guy you can get away for something that should be doing better that's not. You can make a move and get Kyle Bradish, maybe even a second piece along with them, and actually improve your team.
Okay, so that is an actual guy that I was going to speak about.
Okay,
so
sorry.
We are on the same page when it comes to Kyle Bradish. I like a lot what he's doing. So in Baltimore is really going places right now. So I like that a lot.
Good. So did I steal your second guy?
You stole my second guy. So
okay. It's
okay.
I got another one.
Yeah, so I got some, and I don't know if an Atlanta Braves pitcher can be a sleeper or not.
Okay.
But he's only owned in 6.6% of leagues. I'm talking about Michael Soroka. And he's pitching, he's getting his feel back. And he pitched against your Milwaukee Brewers 2 days ago. 6 innings, 4 runs, 6 hits, only 2 walks. And he pitches against your Milwaukee Brewers again on Friday. And if you're looking for a pitcher who's universally, available and They're Atlanta. So he's a guy. Atlanta's formidable anyway, but now if he can sit there and pitch well as well, they're in really good shape. So I like that. And his last few starts, he's pitched 6 innings in 2 of his last 4. So I like that. And I think that he can be a really good part of a pitching staff because, once again, not a rookie. So you don't have to worry about the inning shaving thing. So Michael Soroka, a guy who's available. So if you need pitching help, I would go get him.
All right, Kevin, I hate to do this to you. Breaking news. Michael Soroka has been optioned to AAA Gwinnett today. They claimed Yanni Chirinos off of waivers and sent Soroka down. Now, that's not to say he won't come back in the near future. And I agree with you. If he is back up, I think he's worth having around. I liked him earlier when they first called him up, and then he ended up actually not starting right away, and it became a problem for my fantasy team. But he's not been great, and that's why I think he got optioned. He's been inconsistent, maybe is the better word for it. His last start, though, against Milwaukee, he produced a decent number. When he played against Miami, he had a really good game. So I'm a little surprised by that. I guess with him just pitching, they could afford to send him down, and then they could bring him back, maybe miss a start, and then come back possibly. I'm not sure what the plan is with him. But that just happened within the last couple hours. That Soroka got optioned down. And I hate when that happens.
So hold that particular take right there. You don't want to have somebody on your roster who's not even in the major leagues.
Right.
So
it's not ideal. Unless he's like a top prospect that's going to get called up in the next week.
Okay. Yeah. So cancel him.
Okay.
How about if I go switch over to Kenta Maeda from
there you go.
Minnesota Twins? And I wrote an article about him.
You did, yeah.
A while back about a guy who I look to see really, really big in the second half. And right now he's pitching tomorrow against Seattle at home. Don't look at his record, 2-5, 5-1-0. But you know why that is? Because he gave up 10 runs against the Yankees early on. And I don't know why in the world you leave a pitcher in there long enough to give up 10 runs, but
right.
Regardless of that. But since then, he's given up 0, 2, 1, 3, 2 runs. And he's pitched in the 7th inning 2 of his last 3 starts. So if you're looking for a pitcher who is on a playoff contender who's not in the minor leagues. All right. So Kenta Maeda is a guy that I'm really high about. So I would go and get him. He's available. I'm contemplating doing that very thing myself. So Kenta Maeda, pitcher, Minnesota Twins, Adam.
Okay. I've got one more too. It's a guy that I've recently fallen in love with. He's from the Detroit Tigers of all people, owned in 16.7% of leagues. It's Michael Lorenzen. He's got a 3.49 ERA. 100, just over 100 innings pitched, 76 strikeouts. He is 5-6, so he's not going to get you a ton of wins just based off the fact that
he only had one win until recently. So that 5-6 doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, his last 3 games, granted they were against good opponents, not good for him opponents, Oakland, Seattle, and Kansas City. He scored 21, 26, and 26 fantasy points, pitched 5 innings, 6.2 and 7 innings, 3 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, but no earned runs in those 3 games, scoring high in fantasy. Michael Lorenzen, again, that division is weak. So even when you're playing the top of the division, Minnesota, Cleveland, you're still not super worried about him giving up a ton. And so I think that it's a safe pick. Again, he's owned in 16.7% of leagues. He is owned in our league, Kevin, but he's available in a whole bunch of leagues. And so if Michael Lorenzen's there, even if you just use him as a streamer, he's a guy I think you can count on to not at least not screw you over if you put him in your lineup.
And he's a guy who I complained about who made the All-Star team.
Sure.
But
yeah, I mean, if
he's pitching like an All-Star.
And, I would have been okay if he wasn't in the All-Star game.
It was going to be him. So you got 2 guys that I was looking at.
All right.
So
I like it.
So Michael Lorenzen, like it a lot.
Very good. All right, there you go. Some sleeper pitchers that you can acquire either through trade or through the waiver wire throughout this stretch run of the fantasy baseball season that hopefully can help you win some games. That is our fantasy burner. Up next is our call to the pen. I still haven't fixed the video, so plug your ears. The ringing will be loud. Our call to the pen is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. If you want the purest jerky in the game, you got to go straight to the source. And Righteous Felon has partnered with the best natural black Angus beef producers in the land. And they locked up the supply and guarantee the best tasting, best textured, and freshest beef jerky in the market. Go to righteousfelon.com. Use promo code BELLYUP. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. And our call of the pen gives us a chance to take a minute to look at some Major League Baseball news. I want to start with this that actually bleeds over into fantasy baseball. Bryce Harper finally getting a start at first base. We need him to do it a few more times, but it looks like maybe he'll get some eligibility outside of designated hitters soon. On top of that, how good is it for the Phillies to have Harper being more involved in this team?
It's really good. It benefits Philadelphia, of course, on the field. It benefits because now Kyle Schwarber, who is a guy that you don't want in your outfield to begin with, that now he could play at designated hitter. You can save his legs a little bit. I saw the stat that he leads the world in first pitch home runs. And so he's a guy that as a DH, you can just put him out there. He swings a bat, and he goes, sits down, and does whatever he does in off the field, right? So, and Bryce Harper, I'm talking about, made some better than average plays at first base. He dove to his right a couple of times. He jumped up, grabbed the ball, and doubled the guy off first. So, if he could play a competent first base, which it certainly looks like he can, that helps their defense. And because Schwarber is playing DH, now Philadelphia can go out and get themselves another outfielder, which helps their team and will help somebody, whoever it is they trade for, will help their fantasy value as well.
Yeah, I agree. I acquired Harper in a league several weeks ago back. I don't know if I have the date on here, July 8th. Made a trade to get him and Miguel Garcia from Kansas City. I gave up Marcus Semien to do it, but I tell you, the way that Harper's starting to swing the bat, and I just was kind of buying into the fact that Philadelphia would have a better second half of the season. I'm excited about. I'd love for him to add first base eligibility. That would be the world of my fantasy baseball team, especially making this playoff run.
Absolutely, because I've got him in another league that I'm in, and because he was inexplicably undrafted in that league because people thought that he was gonna be on the IL for a while, which he was, of course. But I went ahead and picked him up right off the bat, put him on my IL, and then when he came back and I looked and saw he's only a DH, but he hadn't played a position since last April.
Wow. And
so that's why he's only a DH. But he's got to play 10 games. I believe it is on ESPN. So he's got 2 under his belt now.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so 8 more games, and he's got first base eligibility, and that in the other league doesn't have nearly as many. It doesn't have a DH slot like we have.
Wow. Yeah.
And so utility, that's the only place I can put him, which really restricts what I can do with my team.
Yeah.
So if and when he gets first base eligibility, then that opens up a lot of possibilities.
And I'd more rather have first base than outfield. I think that position is not near as deep as outfield.
Right. And I agree with that 100%. First base has not been deep since the season started. We talked about that way back at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so he will shore up first base. And then, like I said, when they go and get themselves an outfielder, then somebody's fantasy stock, whoever that player is, will go up.
Speaking of first base, Kevin, Fred McGriff, played first base, right? Scott Rowland, also both of them get enshrined into the Hall of Fame today, I guess it was.
Yeah, it was earlier today at noon here, 1 o'clock, I guess, where time begins in the eastern part of the country. But the Crime Dog, I saw him play while he was on the Padres.
Yeah,
and he had a sweet swing like you wouldn't believe, and So it's good to see that in the Hall of Fame, and they were both very grateful players to be there. So
Now, I never saw Fred play, but I saw his name on the outfield wall in Nashville, minor league baseball, Nashville Sounds. His name was out there on the wall. I was too young to see him play in the minors, but always knew who he was because his name was always plastered on the ballpark. So it's exciting for him. Of course, Scott Rowland as well. Neither one of those guys are dynamic superstars of the game. But both of them, I think, deserving of their spot in the Hall of Fame.
Especially Fred McGriff. He had over 1,500 RBIs.
Yeah.
And so that's quality.
Count, right?
Absolutely.
How about Ohtani chasing Judge? Judge went off last year with the home runs, and now Ohtani's chasing him, and looks like he has a legitimate chance to possibly catch it. Do you think?
Which really surprises me because I thought, and I wrote in my article in my second half preview that I didn't think with Mike Trout not being there, Rendon not being there, who's going to challenge Ohtani? Apparently they are. I don't really understand that. I'd rather put him on first. Is almost what. Who else do they have on that team now?
Right.
So I would rather have anybody else beat me than Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
But they're still pitching to him.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. I have always been a be a man and pitch the ball kind of mentality. Now, from a manager's perspective, from a team's perspective, especially if you're in a playoff race, at the end of the day, I can't blame you if you send them to first base. But I always like the idea of, hey, you're all Major League Baseball players, so go out there. You don't have to throw them strikes,
right?
But give them something to swing
I'm not
at.
saying it has to be like the Barry Bonds scenario where you walk the dude 4 times a game.
Yeah,
not talking about that, but to throw him a pitch in the strike zone,
it's crazy.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, throw him some breaking pitches that are outside the zone. What are you doing throwing to him inside? I don't get that at all. I would throw him if I'm throwing a fastball, I'm throwing it away.
Yeah,
and but yeah, I would not let him beat me. That's all I'm saying.
We talk about the trade deadline coming up at the end of the month and teams that can make a big swing. The Dodgers, of course, have been brought up in that. I know this is news that you'll absolutely love. The latest rumor, the Dodgers looking to reunite with Kiki Hernandez, bringing him back.
I heard his name mentioned before we came on the air here about Boston, and they're getting ready to bring up finally Story.
Yep.
And Kiki Hernandez is available. And I don't know how excited, because I've liked him and I've disliked him this year.
It wouldn't excite me.
No. So the only thing because he can play multiple positions.
Yeah.
But they already have that.
Yeah.
On their team. So
they need somebody that's good at one thing versus somebody that's good at a lot of things.
Right.
Or okay at a lot of things.
They need to settle that lineup, because Mookie Betts is moving all over the place. And if they can get a guy who can solidify things and in the infield, as Mookie Betts is hitting, Freddie Freeman is just going crazy. And so the Dodgers, they just finished up a 9-game series. They started in New York, went to Baltimore, and then now down to Texas. 9 games, they won 6. And you'll take that any day of the week, 6-3 on a road trip. And they go home tomorrow and face Toronto. So it doesn't get a whole lot easier. So
I agree with that. Let's go look at the playoff races. I want to start in the NL Central. Statistically, the hottest team in the league right now is the Cincinnati Reds on a 5-game win streak. They go to Milwaukee this week for 3 games. Milwaukee a half game up coming into this series. And they'll get to see Corbin Burns in this series. He'll be the second pitcher for Milwaukee.
It looks like that prediction, that bold prediction you made, is coming true when it comes to Burns.
Oh yeah, right. I'll tell you what, his appearances since the All-Star break have been absolutely phenomenal, absolutely dominant, and that's great to see because Freddie Peralta has not been good this year. Woodruff just had his rehab assignment started, so he should be back before too long. But they need Corbin Burns to be an ace in order for them to have any chance. And so far, he has. Oh, yeah. But Cincinnati continues to impress. They're not going away.
No,
I've been still very much anti-Cincinnati. I feel like they're going to fall off at some point, but they're
I
not
would have
falling off yet.
thought. I would have thought, Vince, that because they just, I don't want to say just, but they got swept by your Milwaukee Brewers. And I thought,
Yep.
okay, here's where it starts. Then they turn right around and win 5 in a row.
Yeah, well, they actually, after the Milwaukee series, they lost the next 2, I think, after that. I think they went on a 5-game losing streak, and then they turned it around and went on a 5-game winning streak, and they swept Arizona in this most recent series. So it's not like they're
They
playing
sure
Kansas
did,
City.
they sure did. And all those young guys are they're not wilting in the playoff, heat. And so I'm not
look
saying
at
I'm
this,
all
Kevin.
in on Cincinnati, but I'm certainly thinking they're in it. They're in it to stay.
They're in the race. I still think they're going to falter. And here's my argument, at least with the Arizona series. Arizona, since the All-Star break, has not been great.
No,
they're now 4 games back in their own division. Now, is it hitting Arizona at the right time for Cincinnati? Is Cincinnati that good? There's a lot that could be said into that. And again, Cincinnati's offense has been fine. They're electrifying, by the way. They're a fun team to watch. But I still don't think they have the pitching to compete. That being said, though, you sweep a good team like Arizona, whether Arizona had a bad week or not, doesn't matter. You swept a good team in Arizona. And now, though, this is the important games, right? When you get in the division against the people that you're trying to catch.
In the last 2 weeks, this will be 9 games they played against each other. Isn't that right?
Yeah, they played the series before the All-Star break, the series after the All-Star break, and now up again. So yeah, a lot of Reds and Brewers.
So this is a huge series for both teams. And if Milwaukee, because I take them seriously.
Oh yeah,
but they need to take care of Cincinnati and say, hey, remember, you're the redheaded stepchild, so stop it. And and because they made a statement when they swept them.
Yeah.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So
and
I need to do that again. And so, hey, youngsters, go sit in the corner. We'll take care of the business over here.
I think Milwaukee made a statement in this series against the Braves. They lost 2 of 3, but it was by 2 runs each. I mean, they were leading until the bullpen came in this game today. And I mean, I'm telling you, I was encouraged as a Milwaukee fan to see how they played against Atlanta. I know Atlanta's good. I think Atlanta's the best team in the league. So to be able to hold their own and stay with them and have a shot at it, which, by the way, Sal Frelick came in Saturday night, his MLB debut. He starts off 3 for 3. He gets 2 incredible snags in the outfield. Then he gets the game-winning sacrifice fly as well. What a way to start out your MLB career.
You definitely need to put that news clipping or something and put it inside, make it a wall mount or something.
Yeah.
And make sure you keep that for posterity.
Now,
because you don't get much better than that.
I don't know if you remember this, but about a week or 2 before the All-Star break, I brought up at the very end of one of our shows, and I couldn't remember which show it was, so I wasn't going to take the time to go back and listen to all of them. But I told you, there's this kid from Milwaukee. He's going to get called up soon. And when he does, if you're a fantasy player, you need to keep your eyes out on this kid because he's got potential to actually produce. And that was Sal Frelick. And now he's here. Now, I added him in one of my leagues. I don't have him in the other 2 leagues yet. But I'm definitely keeping my eye on him. And if he continues to produce anywhere close, though, he won't do what he did that night. But if he can produce, I'm willing to add him to me.
Yeah, because you look at a guy like Ellie De La Cruz who blew the doors off the place, and he struggled of late. So it happens to every player.
In the East, the NL East, Atlanta, again, firm control of the division. Philadelphia has caught up with Miami. Miami stinks. I've been trying to say that for a while now.
They did win today, but they had lost 7 in a row going into today. And we've talked about that negative run differential. It's catching up to them.
Yeah.
And their pitching is what has kept them going because their offense is not all that.
Right.
But Braxton Garrett has definitely took a big step back. And so if you're Miami, how do you approach this deadline? What do you add? What do you
I'm not doing anything.
I'm
not doing anything.
Yeah, I don't see them being able to do a whole lot. So
unless
all
they can
that,
get a guy that's under control for a couple of years, a guy that can help them for the future, there's
yeah.
no reason for them to swing for the fence for this season.
No, not when you're still getting 10,000 fans in your stadium. And
That's the truth.
so it is true. And so we
But
I didn't
I
believe
think
in Miami.
Philadelphia makes the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I believe in. I said that a couple weeks ago on
Yeah.
the Belly Up, Fantasy Super Show, and look out for Philadelphia just like a year ago.
Yeah, they're not going to win the division, but
No,
they're going to be in the playoffs.
Nobody can win that division. The Dodgers couldn't win that division. So
the Dodgers aren't that far behind.
well, yeah, but because they're 7 games behind if they were in that division. The Dodgers I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and so, but that's not the goal. The goal is to make the playoffs, which they did, and got to the World Series.
Yep,
which they can do.
Yeah,
and like I said, they're going to make a play for an outfielder, and it's going to strengthen their team, maybe a pitcher or so. And so Philadelphia, look for them to really play excellent baseball down the stretch.
Everybody in the NL West lost today, but the Dodgers control the division now, 4 games up on Arizona and San Francisco. I'm not sure. San Francisco's on a 5-game losing streak. Arizona's on a 4-game losing streak. We question Arizona because of 2 things: their age and their pitching, and they can make a move at the deadline that can help them. San Francisco, I'm curious to see what they do at the deadline. How much do they think they can actually contend? For a long time there, they were right there at the top, and they haven't looked the same for the last, since the All-Star break, especially.
Right. Since the All-Star break, there are a lot of teams who have they're either slow or they're actually in reverse.
Yeah.
And the trade deadline can help, I guess, if they decide to do that. So we're going to have, and the trade deadline has been quiet.
Yeah.
Up until now, but it's 9 days away. So that's got to heat up.
It's coming. Another team that's been slow or in reverse would be the Tampa Bay Rays. They were atop the whole league for a long time. Then the Braves overtook them. They were still on top of the East. Now the Baltimore Orioles are up 2 games. Toronto's 6.5 back from Baltimore. Tampa, they still got a massive run differential, but at the end of the day, and they had a series against Baltimore, they couldn't dominate in that series. No. Tampa's looking like a wild card team that's not really a legit World Series threat at this point.
They sure are, and that's why you play baseball. You don't award championships in May when they started at 30-9 and all. They're 13-0 and 30-9 and all that, and everybody's like, "Oh, Tampa," and but the season's not over. I'm not going to cancel Christmas on Tampa just yet because they've got some talent up. Well, down there. Florida's down there from just about everywhere, but so I'm not going to sit there and get all, oh man, Tampa's out of it, because as we said, if you say Tampa's out of it, then that's not a safe bet even now to make.
Sure.
And but they've got to get it together, because they came home. I understand that they were on the road and all that, but they came home and still did not do it against Baltimore. And Baltimore is a team that's got a lot of confidence right now. They've got the pitching, as you mentioned, with Bradish, and Gunnar Henderson is coming around. He looked like an absolute bust for a long time, but he's playing well, and their offense is playing well. So Baltimore isn't, and we talked about Toronto, but Baltimore right now looks like they can certainly win this division.
Yeah, they'll be a tough out. In the Central, Minnesota 3 games up on Cleveland. It is a 2-horse race there. Right now, Minnesota's been the hotter team, made it out of the last 10, 3-game win streak, taking care of the White Sox. They head to Seattle next, or actually stay home for Seattle next. I still don't trust the Twins enough. I think the Twins in Cleveland will be neck and neck pretty much the whole rest of the way. I wouldn't be surprised if the Twins win the division, but I don't think they're a threat come playoff time.
No, because they're never a threat when it comes to playoffs. They haven't won. They could win a game.
Yeah.
Of course, looks like this year they won't have to worry about the Yankees
True.
for chance in the playoffs because the Yankees just spank them, and that's the end of that. But I think Minnesota and their pitching staff, especially if I mentioned Kenta Maeda earlier, he starts playing like he's pitching like he's capable, and they got Joan Ryan and all that. So their pitching staff is division winning worthy.
Sure.
So and Cleveland, they've got some pitchers over there as well.
Yeah.
So,
I'll talk about one of them with our ads.
Okay. Probably the same one I was going to talk about, but that seems to be the theme of the show right here.
There we go. That's good. We're on the same page. In the West, though, we got Texas 3 games up on Houston. Parker Ainsworth, our buddy at Belly Up Sports, posted some tweets today about all the Astros that are getting healthy and about to return. The Astros aren't going to go away. Now, they had a series against Oakland this week, which helped them out, even though they didn't sweep them. Texas, that's who they got next.
That's
Texas.
who they play starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, Texas, once again, they could have made a statement a couple weeks ago and then lost 3 out of 4. And so now they have another chance to make a statement. So they play 3 in Houston, and then they go to San Diego after that. So we'll know a lot more about the Texas Rangers come a week from today.
And the Astros, right? I mean, it's going to show us a lot about both of these teams.
Well, that's right. Sure will.
Angels are 4 games out of the wild card race. Seattle 4.5 games out of the wild card race. Both of them still technically in the hunt. But if I had to bet on the Angels or Seattle making the playoffs, I'd probably bet against them at this point, even though the Angels have looked good recently.
Right. And sometimes when you hurt yourself or whatever, and then you get that shot of adrenaline, and maybe that's what's happening with the Angels, but adrenaline wears off at some point. And so the Angels, they're not going to win. They're not going to trade Ohtani. And then we'll see.
Then we'll see. All right. That's all we got time for in this segment. Make sure you visit righteousfelon.com. Get yourself some beef jerky. Use code BELLYUP. Get 15.
Remember the taco flavor. All right?
The taco flavor. Yeah. Walking taco, I think it's technically what it is, right?
I guess so. But I just remember the taco flavor is good.
If it says taco, get it. Code BELLYUP. Get you 15% off your purchase. All right. Time for our fantasy focus. Fantasy Focus is presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com. Again, your one-stop shop for all things fantasy sports. It's where you can find all of Kevin's articles as well. So make sure you visit BellyUpFantasySports.com. Our Fantasy Focus segment is where we go over our ads and drops for the week. So let's start with our drops today, Kevin. Who do we get rid of this week? Sorry if that makes you flip a page.
No worries. I'm right here. No worries whatsoever. And we just talked about the Angels just a moment ago, and one of their players that's at 57.7% owned that needs to go is Hunter Renfroe.
There you go.
And, okay, so this is what he's done this week: 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 0 for 3, 1 for 3, 0 for 2. 1, -2. He actually had 3 points somehow, even though he went 0 for 2. The -1, 2, -1. So that is not a winning combination whatsoever to me. And if you're in a league like ours that's 10 or even 12 teams, there has to be an outfielder out there who can provide a little more fantasy oomph to your team than Hunter Renfroe. And he's one of the reasons why I talked about why are you pitching the Shohei Ohtani?
Right.
Get him on base and then worry about Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah.
And so I'm not worried about him because he's not going to be on my team.
I agree. I've got a guy 54.6% owned from the Minnesota Twins. When you talk about my roster, I call this guy Bye Byron Buxton. I actually had Buxton on my roster. And
we are on the same wavelength right now.
Listen to these numbers. In the last 14 days, Byron Buxton had 1 good outing where he scored 13 points against the White Sox.
He hit 2 home
Outside
runs
of that,
I believe. Yeah.
He had he had 4 games, -4 games over 3 games at Oakland, -4 points in a 3-game series against Oakland. When you play Oakland, you're supposed to excel. And he went the other direction, negatively. He scored 0 points again today against the White Sox. outside of that one burst on the 21st, he's been horrible since the beginning of the month when he scored 11 against Kansas City. Byron Buxton, listen, I'm sorry. I know some people like him. I have been burned by Buxton years ago, and I've tried to keep him off my roster.
Him years ago as well, and I have never stepped back into the ring because anytime you get ready to do that, then he gets hurt anyway.
Now, listen, he was drafted 140th overall by a kid in our league, Brennan, and he's still on Brennan's roster, which is why Brennan will not make the playoffs in our league. Byron Buxton should not be on your roster right now. Get rid of him.
I agree with that 100%. And my ex guy, you know that I'm not a big relief pitcher in fantasy to begin with, but there's a guy, and if the fact that he pitches for the Kansas City Royals should be a tip-off for anybody in the first place, and but he's still almost 40% owned, and I'm talking about Scott Barlow. All right, so he let's see, against Cleveland, he had -2 points. Then he pitched pretty good against Cleveland the next, and he had 8 points. But then against Detroit, he gave up 4 runs on 3 hits and 3 walks, -10 fantasy points. Then the next day, today, as a matter of fact, against the Yankees, he pitched just 2.2 innings. 0.2, not just 1, 0.2. Gave up 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 hits, -6 fantasy points. That's 3 negative fantasy points in his last 5 games. No thank you to Mr. Scott Barlow coming down the stretch. You're sitting there trying to make the playoffs or solidify your position. Scott Barlow has no place on a fantasy roster, especially if you're 10 or 12, even 14 teams. I don't want any part of it.
I could agree with that for sure. I'm going to go starting pitcher, owned in 86.5% of leagues. He's only pitched in 3 games this season, and they've all been a bust. Carlos Rodon of the New York Yankees. He has scored 5 points.
I've heard his name a couple of times.
-4 points.
Positively.
7.36 ERA, 0-3 at the start of the season. He's not shown that he can do anything since his return from injury. It's time to let Carlos go. Either trade him off or cut him. Get rid of him. You could get pitchers who can produce far more than he's producing.
All right. So the last guy that dropped that I'm going to talk about, we talked about the Diamondbacks just a moment ago. And my guy is somehow he was an all-star. I'm talking about Lourdes Gurriel, outfielder and DH, owned in 64.9% of league. All right. This is what he's done this week. 0 for 6. That's almost hard to do. 1 for 5, 0 for 1, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 5. Only 1 game he had positive fantasy points. So I wrote an article about using the all-star, status as a place to begin to maybe do a trade. Hey, he's an all-star. He's an all-star hitter. Let me get a pitcher from you.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't work, which it wouldn't work on me, by the way. Arizona, he could turn it around, I guess, but until he does so, I don't want, and he's just an outfielder. No. Lourdes Gurriel at 64.9% of leagues is not providing you what you need. And he is a DH as well, but that doesn't matter at all. So Lourdes Gurriel is got to go.
If you have Gurriel on your team, you need to try to find a Diamondback fan in your league. Now, first of all, they're hard to find because until this year, you didn't know they existed. But they've started to come out of the woodwork a little bit now. So now you know they're there. Go ship them off to one of those guys. They'll take them.
Ship them.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Don't let them wreck your team.
Don't let them be in a rush.
Don't let them do it.
Last guy I've got is he's only owned in 17.3% of leagues, but he is owned in our league. Personally, I would never own this person because I think he's a horrible human being. Now, what does that have to do with fantasy? Nothing at all. Whatever. You can take it or leave it. I don't care. He's never going to be on my team. But that being said, he no longer belongs on anybody's team. Marcelo Zuna from Atlanta, outfielder, DH, again, 17.3% owned. He has batting .050 in the last week, 1 home run. He's got negative points the last 2 games against Milwaukee. It's just not been pretty here as of late. Actually, this whole month has been bad. Marcell Ozuna shouldn't be on your roster, and not because he's a bad human being, because he's a bad fantasy player currently for Atlanta. Lose Marcell Ozuna off your team as well.
He had some value back in early June, I believe it was.
He was producing.
This is not early June, so I'm with you, Marcell. Sit down.
All right, let's get over to our ads now. Who we got to add? And I know that we're going to have the same players. I just can feel it. I've got 3 guys, and I bet you've got all 3 of them too. But I'll let you swing first.
Well, I bet one guy's not, because your aversion to the Cincinnati Reds. But my ad first guy, and you need to check and see if he's available, because he has a 36% rostered. But I'm talking about Jake Frawley. Okay. Frawley is out anyway, outfielder, and he's hit 2 home runs this week. He had a 2-hit game. He had 4 points, 7 points, 6 points, 3 points, fantasy points. So he's a guy that Cincinnati can hit the ball, as we just talked about a moment ago. And if he's available and one of those outfielders that you could replace Gurriel with, I would make that move.
Yeah, Cincinnati's got guys that have produced, no doubt, and he's one of those guys, especially as of late. He's done a good job. I struggle to add Reds. My fear is consistency, but I know that that's a personal thing that I've got to get over. Needless to say, I don't have any Reds on my team currently. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pick a guy that you've got. I'll take the one that we already talked about, that we didn't mention his name. We'll see if it's the same guy. Cleveland starting pitcher, owned in 27.3% of leagues, Tanner Bibby. His last game was against Philadelphia. 7 innings pitched, 8 Ks, 0 earned run with a win. His season, he's got 83 innings, 85 Ks, 3.04 ERA, 6-2 record. I'm surprised he's only owned in 27% of leagues. Honestly, he seems like a solid pitcher.
He is a solid pitcher, and we talked about the Guardians a moment ago. They've got some pitchers, not just him, but they've got some pitchers who are not rostered enough that could really make a difference on your team. He's certainly one of them, and I'm with you on Tanner Bibby all the way.
All right, there we go. Who else you got?
All right, so this is a guy I believe that you mentioned last week.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to continue to jump on this because he's at 21% rostered, and that's Henry Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Of that Pittsburgh Pirates, who has one big advantage going his way, and that is he's a catcher-eligible player who is in the outfield, and he just happened to hit 2, not 1, 2. Get that on the there we go. 2 home runs the other day, had 13 fantasy points after he went 3 for 4. But that's not all he's done. He's had hits in 4 of his last 5. He has positive points except for yesterday. And anytime you can get a guy that you could put in that catcher position who's going to be in your lineup every single day, that has all kinds of upside there, fantasy value up the wazoo. So if you have any kind of concerns about catcher, which almost it goes with fantasy baseball, Henry Davis is a guy who can solve that problem.
So the league that I picked Henry Davis up in, I've got him sitting on my catcher spot right now. But I also have on the same roster MJ Melendez and Dalton Varsho. And I know neither of those guys have had the season we expected them to have. I'm holding out hope that they will. But right now, being able to have Davis sitting in my catcher spot, it's a categories league in this one, but it has been a huge boost to my team, huge pickup for my team. And, man, that's a game changer at this point in the fantasy season, having a guy like Henry Davis around.
Right.
Let's see here. I've got outfielder from Houston, 25.1% owned, that I picked up in a league, Chas McCormick. His last 7, he's got 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases. He's hitting 400. Can't ask for a whole lot more from a fantasy perspective than having a guy like Chas McCormick on your team. He did give me negative points today, but until then, it's been positive. In a series against the Angels last week, he scored 14 points in 2 different games So a lot of good things happening for Chas McCormick and for the Astros as a whole. I like having Astros on my team.
Okay, that's never a bad thing if you can have Astros on your fantasy team. So I'm with you on that. All right, so last guy, and we talked about the Guardians, and I have a pitcher whom you did not mention.
Okay.
Who and I had mentioned last week in my bold predictions, not off to the greatest start of all time, but Gavin Williams. He's a rookie who you need to be concerned about at some point, but not this week. He's at 10.4% rostered, and he pitches against the Kansas City Royals on Wednesday, and that's all you need to know, really, at this point in time. He pitches against the Royals, and his last 3 starts, he's given up 3, 2, and 1 run. He's walked 4 in his last 2 games, which is concerning. But when you're facing the Kansas City Royals at home, you could shelve a lot of those concerns and just stream him for this one game coming up and then worry about the innings later. But he's universally available. So Gavin Williams is a guy I would look to add this week against any pitcher that's pitching against Kansas City gets a boost anyway. So Gavin Williams is a guy.
This guy wasn't on my list, but I just picked him up in another league. Logan Allen, he pitches tomorrow against Kansas City.
I picked him up in because he pitches tomorrow.
Yep.
In the other league that I'm in, Logan Allen, come on down. So that's what we're talking about. The Guardians starting pitching is in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah, so, definitely. I've got another hitter. I think we've talked about him last week or the week before, but I can't remember. Can't keep them all straight. He's an outfielder, first base eligible for Minnesota. Alex Kirilloff, only owned in 8.6% of leagues. He's got 4 home runs in the last week, 13 RBIs, batting .357. I've seen other people writing articles. Is he finally here? Has he finally showed up? Is he finally doing what we thought he's going to do? Well, listen, for the last couple of weeks, he's been solid. And he's still only owned in 8.6% of leagues. He's worth putting on your team. Again, having that first base eligibility along with the outfield goes a long way as well. I think he's worth putting on your team right now because he's probably hitting better than some of the guys that you got on your roster.
Okay, I agree with that. And so there we go.
All right. Nobody else, correct?
Well, just a special shout out.
Okay.
And this is because I wrote an article of drops of which I have talked about none of them on this particular show, but there's a certain Seattle outfielder who I feel needs to get special mention after he goes around and he kicks coolers, breaks, and breaks his foot, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And he's out. And so when somebody does something that's such a dunderheaded play as that, he needs to be exposed. And he's still owned in way too many leagues. If you want to know who this guy is, if you don't know, go to my article right now on the Belly Fantasy website. If you have him on your team, shed him immediately.
Feel bad for him, man. He's crying.
I know he knows he did something stupid, but the tears don't make any difference when it was such a stupid thing to do.
Well, you know what? Who was it? Amari Stoudemire punched a wall or something in the playoffs.
It's been done in quite a few players, but all of them, they need to put the red nose from the clown on their noses, and because it's just, come on, I know he's a young guy, but still, be a professional, keep yourself in check, and he didn't, and so now he and his team are paying the price for it.
Yeah. In our fantasy league, to keep everybody updated, we're still several weeks away. Let's see. Let me pull it up real quick. We've got starting tomorrow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more matchups before the playoffs. I move up to 9-6 by meeting Nick Macaronis. Kevin Wilson remains in first place, taking down Drew Shields. Mike Brown, co-founder of Belly Up Sports, he's moving up this year. He'll be at 8-7 now. after beating Nathan Nguyen, who I get to play Nathan Nguyen next week. I'm pretty excited about that. I don't think Nathan scored over 200 points in quite some time. Let's see here. Chase Thornton, he's been on a roll as of late as well. He goes to 8-7.
He was very excited this morning,
saying
that he was going to move up. So
yeah, right there in that playoff race.
Yeah, this playoff chase is shaping up, and definitely want to keep track of this and tune in so you can know how things are working.
He should change his team name to Playoff Chase. That'd be better than he's the Rice Lake Chasers. And then the fraud, formerly known as first place, undefeated, Say Hey Stove, my dad Dale Stover. He loses again this week. He's on a 4-game losing streak. He loses to the defending champ Dan D'Amico, who had a really good week this week.
Absolutely blistered.
Yeah,
last week.
Yeah, but he put up 387. That's his best forward performance in quite some time.
He did, and it's a good thing I didn't play him this week because I would not have beaten him if we were going head to head. So
right now, Kevin has secured his spot. 4-game win streak. His spot at first place is pretty safe. Myself and Mike Brown are also on 4-game win streaks. My dad on a 4-game losing streak. Dad's still in second place, though. He had such a great start to the season. He's kind of like the Tampa Bay Rays. It helped him out, get that fast start. He's got some time to recover. 4 teams make the playoffs in this league. And so myself, I'm in third, a game up on Mike Brown and Chase Thornton, 2 games up on Dan D'Amico. And but I know Chase and Mike are coming for me, so I got to keep on going and hope. I hope that you help me out next week, Kev. You've got who do you have next week? Do you have Chase next week?
Let me see here. That would be. I got Mike Brown next week.
Mike Brown next week. That's right. Mike Brown next week. So I need you to
Mike Brown, if you're watching, be ready.
Yeah, there you go. Kevin's coming for you. So it's all right there. Listen, there's all kinds of things for you to read. I had 2 articles drop. That's right. Let's see. Earlier this weekend, maybe it's Friday, I dropped my Milwaukee Brewers shopping list for the trade deadline. Realistic opportunities for guys for them to get. Not, I didn't put Shohei Ohtani in there.
Be realistic and not because you hear all this stuff about, he's got a shot at Ohtani. No, you don't.
No.
So be realistic about it.
Yeah, I have seen other people post articles about the Brewers and the package they could put together for Ohtani. Not going to happen. No. But nonetheless, I got that article out. That's on bellyupsports.com, as well as Major League Baseball's power rankings for Week 17. Okay. Also available right now. The Atlanta Braves still hold number 1 pretty firm, but Baltimore finally moved up. The Brewers are back in the top 10. First time in quite some time they've been there. The Pirates, or no, not the Pirates. The Marlins were the big fallers this week, dropping 9 spots in the power rankings there as well. And then, Kevin, you got your articles on bellyupfantasysports.com.
That's right. And the one I just mentioned, the top drops, they're, like I said, there are players on there. I didn't mention them on this show. And so get over there, check it out. You could go to Reddit and check it out if you want to do that and see some of the interesting comments. Because that's where I get my interesting interplay with other people that are in fantasy baseball and comments, and they're usually pretty, not you suck,
right?
You know what I'm saying? They're comments questions are very instructive, very imaginative, very they want to know, and they're not one of those where, who do you think I should add to my roster and why? Okay, I'm not doing your research for you. But so
we get paid enough for that.
No. And so there are a lot of very good comments over there, and people are actually checking it out. It was at over 12,000 views.
Nice
on Reddit. So I'm very appreciative of anybody that actually checks out my work. So appreciate you all out there.
Now, that's on the Belly Up Fantasy page. Let me tell you about some of the baseball articles currently up on the bellyupsports.com. This has just been in the last week. Eric Katz has been putting out a ton of trade deadline stuff. He's got one on Paul Blackburn, would boost the Reds' struggling rotation. Cody Bondison put it out a give Masataka Yoshida Rookie of the Year anyway. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet. Brian Germanaro had why the Orioles are perfect for Ohtani trade. There you go.
Yeah,
take that one.
That's another one where you're flying blind if you think that's
Well,
going to happen.
they got the pieces. There's no doubt about that. They can make an offer that is far better than anything else.
Ohtani has no interest in Baltimore. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I'm going to text them tonight and ask him if that's true or not. Matt Couture put out the Red Sox should be buyers. Eric Katz, Jack Flaherty is perfect for the Rays. Current MLB playoff picture by Elizabeth Lovato. Eric Katz again. Yaimer Candelario is the bat the Brewers need. No, it's not. Don't do it, Milwaukee. But read the article anyways.
No, it isn't.
Eric Katz again. The Orioles need to extend Adley Rutschman right now. Sure, why not? I've got the Brewers shopping list and the power rankings out there. Lots of baseball stuff right now on the Belly Up.
Baseball is king on Belly Up. That's what it is right now.
Taking care of it. Again, everything else is kicking off. Football, of course, is going. You can catch Kevin every Sunday morning on the Belly Up Fantasies social media pages for the Fantasy Football Show. Of course, here for the Fantasy Baseball Show every Sunday night. Get them on Twitter at Kevin62, WILSEA. You can catch my stuff on bellyupsports.com. You can catch me on social media at Sports Stove, Twitter, Instagram, and even Threads if you're over there. Not very many people are, but nonetheless, I'm there also. I've got a live show Sunday night doing the Fantasy Baseball Show. Live show Wednesday night with my dad. We're going through college football previews right now. We're previewing the Pac-12 this week. Not as exciting as the other
Clemson Tigers. So
that's right.
Up to that.
Thank you. You can always catch past episodes of the Sports Stove podcast. And then Thursday night, we're live as well doing the Sports Stove Local Hour. I'm joined by EKU football player Ryan Jackson, and we're going through position previews. We talk to position coaches and players. If you're a football nerd, you need to listen to those episodes. It's fun stuff. We've got a lot of information out of the coaches that's not just EKU-centric. Some really good stuff, though. And, of course, if you're an EKU fan, you got to tune in. There ain't no better coverage than right here on the Sports Stove. All right.
No, there's no other coverage as far as I know.
No other coverage. That's right. I think my Wednesday show, by the way, might start about 15 minutes late this week for what it's worth. So tune in at 8:15 this week at the Sports Stove podcast. All right. That's it for tonight. Lots of stuff going on. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you keep up to date. If you missed any part of the live show, go back and listen to the whole show. And if you enjoy the show, do us a favor. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. Right. Give us a thumbs up. Give us something. Let us know.
Thumbs up.
That's right. All the time. All right. By the way, one more shout out. Congrats, Sal Freelick, on a great debut. Good luck moving forward as well. Thank you for tuning in to today's edition of the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.
Everybody have a great week.